back to another episode of the BoomBastiCAST. And boy, do we have a guest for y'all this evening. The wonderful, great, yes, very funny, very down to earth, very cool. Bennett Yellin up in this Mo Trucker, writer of Dumb and Dumber. You might have heard of a movie called Dumb and Dumber, right? Maybe you heard about that movie? Comedy, I
I
think.
think I've heard of that movie.
I believe that's a comedy, right? I think they made that. I think that was a comedy made a couple years back or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Jim Carrey or something might have been in it. You know what I mean? Maybe something like that.
Something
Huh?
like that.
Who else is in there? Your boy Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff Daniels up in there?
Jeff Daniels and Jim Carrey. I mean,
No.
it's you had it was the tail end of what would be considered the Jim Carrey trifecta. You had Ace
Right.
Ventura, Pet Detective, you had The Mask, and then at the end, last but not least, Dumb and Dumber, which, and even to this day, you talk to people of our generation
Yeah.
and bring up Dumb and Dumber, and we all love it. It's a fun film and a great script, great actors. It's a lot of fun, and it's kind of warms the heart. It you got two guys who definitely not the smartest people, but you can believe in their friendship, and you can believe that they're decent guys, even though they might not be acting like mature men that they should be.
Yeah. I'm very excited for this episode. This episode is very much like the Carl Gottlieb episode, writer of The Jerk and Dr. Detroit. You know what I mean? The Jerk is, there's a generation that looks at The Jerk and says that's the greatest comedy ever made. And I do think that, there's a generation that looks at Dumb and Dumber and says that's the greatest comedy ever made. And it's a privilege and an honor to have both of those gentlemen, great writers on the BoomBastiCast, and that's one of the things we love to do the most around here is have great guests on the BoomBastiCast.
That's
Nah, I
it.
mean, nah, I mean. But all right, Alexander, do you want to say anything else before we pop into this?
Oh no, just that I can't wait to talk to Bennett, learn more about him and how he became a screenwriter and how working with the Farley brothers and creating this great film that we all love today, Dumb and Dumb.
This interview was a lot of fun, and we had a lot of good stories in it. So, BoomBastiCast audience, hold on to your butts. Welcome to the show for the first time, Bennett Yellin. Welcome to the BoomBastiCast.
Shall I intro myself?
If you want to, sure, go for it.
Oh gosh, I wanted to hear what you came up with. No, I'm just Bennett. I'm just Bennett Yellin, a screenwriter for many, many, many years who lives in Los Angeles. I'm coming to you from Los Angeles on Sunday morning. Or oops, are we in some magical realm where we don't say when we're taping this or anything?
We distribute to a place that doesn't celebrate days of the week. Yeah. No, that's
Delaware.
cool.
Okay, so okay, yeah, and I'm a screenwriter, and I've been fortunate enough to work with the Farrelly brothers for years, and co-wrote Dumb and Dumber and Dumb and Dumber 2, but had nothing to do with Dumb and Dumberer, the prequel.
Yeah.
as we might discuss, I don't know, but I have many years of screenwriting experience, and I'm happy to discuss it with my new pals, the hoarder Matt and the worse hoarder Alex. You can't tell, but that the screen is hiding an enormous amount of
I'm a hoarder in disguise. Don't tell anybody.
They're all doorways over there. That's what those are. Doorways into
Doorways into different dimensions.
Have you guys seen the Dune 2 popcorn buckets? They're just like yesterday. They said, how R-rated is this show? Because
it's very R-rated.
Hey, anything goes. I mean, it's all good.
Because when you see them, it looks like it's a tie-in between Fleshlight and Dune 2. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is what you came up with to promote the movie? It's. Remember, I said this because, or anybody listening to this, because when you see it, you'll go, what the hell? Yeah. So
Sex
I'm
sells,
also
best you know.
I'm also a cult when you held up the big when you just took a sip, I thought,
Yeah.
yeah, I thought, wait till you see the Dune 2 popcorn bucket / fleshlight. You won't. You think I'm joking, and maybe a little bit, but not that much. Okay, guys, talk. What do you want?
Well, Bennett, we're artists as well. We always like to get into, where did you catch the bug for, storytelling?
Ah, wow.
Yeah.
They have a vaccine for that now. I just always, first of all, I'm an old man. I'm in my 60s. I'm 64, and so I grew up in the 60s here in Los Angeles. And thank goodness we had television, and television was basically your babysitter.
Yeah.
I mean, when parents were busy, that they plopped me and my sisters down, and so I watched a lot of TV, and when you watch something and you become familiar with it, and you really, and if you have any kind of minimal intelligence, that you start to integrate what it is, like how it's put together and things like that. And so I would watch TV, and there were movies on TV, and the family would get together to watch movies, and my parents would take us to the movie theaters to watch movies, and I instantly just gravitated to movies and TV, and the way they were made, and just it was rolling through my head, and I'd ask myself questions like, what's a cut, and how did they, and I'm lost in space. When a person would like vanish instantly, I'd say, how do they do that? And I remember when I was very little, I figured it out because I loved Lost in Space. So Lost in Space was 1966, I think. So I'm 7 years old. And a 7-year-old watching this and having there wasn't any of the background to how movies are made back in the mid 60s. There was not what's on the internet now. There was no internet. There was barely a now. So I figured out how they made the characters like suddenly disappear on Lost in Space. They had a platform on the soundstage, so I already knew that it was a soundstage, and the person was attached to the platform somehow, and then they whisked it away really fast. What I couldn't figure out was how they didn't go flying off even how attached they were that they wouldn't be thrown from the platform. But that's how it was. That's how in my 7-year-old mind. But that's the way I was thinking about things. Like,
Yeah.
how do they make them? How do they put them together? And then started reading books, and I literally I took in the language of movies and television and learned it, learned it in my head. So that's how it started. And I always wanted to be a screenwriter. I did. I wanted to be behind the scenes. I had no interest didn't want to be an actor, didn't want to be a director. I liked the idea of being the creator. When I was a kid, I was a magician. And I do magic shows at parties and everything. And when we're talking like, when I was pre-teen,
Yeah.
and it's all, to me, it's all the same thing. I love the idea of, I'm going to create a show for you. You're the audience. I'm the person behind the screen, behind the curtain, and I'm going to create this show. And you're not going to know how it was created or how it was put together. You're just going to have this beautiful presentation and this experience. And you're going to come away from it laughing, crying, scared, whatever. I would put on haunted houses at Halloween and in my backyard and give tours. My sisters were made up like, ghouls and everything like that. I loved being that person. And movies are really the same thing as a magic show. They're just the same, except, there's no stage necessarily, except at the movie theater. And that was what drew me to the whole experience of it. And I wanted to be a writer. I loved to read, so I wanted to write books, and I wanted to give people an experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a long answer. Gosh.
No, that's good. That's good. We often the magic of movie making and like the trickery. We often talk. There's this scene in a film we did called Insomniac, and it's a guy driving in a car, and the way we fake the shot, the car was just parked,
Yeah.
But would shake it, and you have the light continue to go above it, and you would never be able to tell that he wasn't driving down the road. And those are the things that I really like about filmmaking, is like that trickery where you really set it
Oh
up.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I did make Super 8. I made regular 8 movies before Super 8, and then I made Super 8 movies. And the joy of editing them, editing them was the most fun, because that's when you just play around with it and change it and reshape it. And so I was very, very much into, but here's the thing, I never thought I could really be a screenwriter. Like I wasn't connected with the business, even though we lived close by to what's now Sony Studios, but back then when I was a kid, it was MGM, and we would drive by the lot, and the back lot, and I'd see like the sets and everything from movies and get so excited. But that was it. I was on the outside. I didn't have any connection to the business whatsoever. So it was just a fantasy to write. I wasn't planning or intended. My intent, and what I ended up doing for school, is I went to UCLA, and then I majored at UCLA in fiction writing. And I thought, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get a degree. I'm going to teach writing. I want to teach writing because I love the idea of, I felt like there's a writer in every person, that they just need the encouragement or to be shown how to get the story out of them, So I was going to after UCLA, I went away to graduate school in Massachusetts, and I was going to get my graduate degree and then buy a corduroy jacket with patches, and a pipe, and go off to a Midwest college and teach writing. That's really what I thought I was going to do. And unfortunately, on the first day of graduate school, in the first class, I met Peter Farrelly. So there went that idea, because we were friends, right?
Best friends.
Left the class and we're talking in the hall after class, because we're instantly friends. And while we were in grad school, we knew we both had the same ridiculous sense of humor. And I don't remember when we did it, but we said, let's write a script together. I mean, there's no reason not to.
Yeah.
But I mean, except that we just knew, like, it wasn't even in our minds what we were going to do with it. It just, we were funny guys, and let's get together and put an idea together. And neither of us had written a script before, and we weren't in this program we were both in the program for an MFA in fiction, nothing to do with screenwriting or anything like that. But we wrote the script, and it was really funny. And now we've got this funny script called Dust to Dust. And what are you going to do with it? So, well, okay, I'm going to jump to in the winter of 1985, Peter was on a date in New York. And at this time, this is Eddie Murphy was a huge star off of Beverly Hills Cop and 48 Hours, huge. And the girl he was on the date with said, "You'll never believe who moved in next door to my parents in Alpine, New Jersey, Eddie Murphy." And Pete was like, "What? Do you ever see him?" And she was like, "Oh yeah, like he was washing his car the other day." So he gave her our script, gave her Dust to Dust. She called a few days later and said, he was coming out to get his mail. And I ran over and gave it to him. She handed it to him. Guys, I don't have to tell you, this could not happen. It could barely happen in 1985.
Yeah.
But it could never happen today, much less in the form of, there are no scripts to hand somebody now. You give them you email it to them, you give them a flash drive or whatever.
Yeah.
But we were like, oh wow. And in the meantime, I had come home to Los Angeles for the holidays, and my sister would go folk dancing. She had this one place she loved to folk dance, and she met and knew David Zucker, who also would go folk dancing there. And I asked her, and by the way, my sister's name is Freda, and yes, we did name the character of Freda Felcher in Dumb and Dumber after my sister. Uh,
Great
we
trivia.
yeah, and she dines out a lot on that one. And I asked Freda, I said, Freda, would you ask David Zucker if he'd read a script of ours? And she said, sure. And he said yes. And so she gave David Zucker Dust to Dust. All right, now dissolve or to several months later, and we're finished with our program in Massachusetts, and it's time to like figure out, what we're gonna do. And I was still in Massachusetts. I was leaving in about a week or so, and I got a piece of mail from my dad, and I opened it up, and it was a Los Angeles Times ad. Oh, where do I put it here? It was an article in the Los Angeles Times, and the article was all about Eddie Murphy, and it was called like the Eddie Murphy Script Derby, and like how everyone was trying to write a screenplay for Eddie Murphy. And the opening line of the article was, Eddie Murphy was looking out his Alpine, New Jersey window when he saw a sight that made his heart skip a beat. It was a neighbor coming across the street with a script. The neighbor they described the neighbor as a he, not she. The neighbor handed him the script, Dust to Dust. Now Eddie Murphy read it. He liked it. Now, here's what happened. They didn't know who we were. This is exactly what happened. He read it, he loved it, and they couldn't find us. They were looking. They asked around Los Angeles town, is Peter Farrelly and Bennett Yellin, are they represented anywhere? No. And so they planted that in that article to get us to call in. I remember my dad had scrawled in the corner. He said, "Is this your script?" No. Yeah. So we called Paramount. We said, "Hey, that's our script." And they said, "We've been looking for you." And we came, and so he said, Eddie Murphy wants to meet you, wants you to write something for him. Meanwhile, my sister, Freda, calls. She says, David Zucker wants to talk to you. He read your script. He really likes it. He gave it to his brother and their partner, Jim. And so we came to town from Massachusetts. We moved to Los Angeles, moved in together with a deal to write something for Eddie Murphy and write something for the Zucker brothers. And that's how we got started. And kids, if you listen to me, that'll happen to you one day.
I like to hear.
That's just that story is crazy because it so couldn't happen today. And the fact that we, I mean, I mean at all in any form, because like even I won't say I'll read someone's script, because you cannot allow, there's so much potential for legal liability if I take your flash drive, even if I take it and don't read the script. You say I handed that script to Bennett Yellin, and he wrote a script, and there's a scene in that's just like coincidentally, there's a scene at a beauty parlor with flamingos, and we wrote a scene at a beauty parlor with flamingos, and I got sued. So you just can't do it. But back then, apparently they didn't care, or they were just a lot more. I don't know. We were. It's so lucky. We were so lucky, and that's how we got started.
Yeah, what we need now is Eddie Murphy moved next door to us, man.
Yes, right.
We gotta call up Eddie Murphy and say, hey, we got a great condo right next door. You want to buy it? Move in.
Where do you guys live?
We're Massachusetts. We're Massachusetts.
You're in Massachusetts. Which part?
I'm in the Whitman area, and he's more the Andover area.
Okay, all right. Well, it's possible. Well, yeah.
Yeah, we almost got Bennifer once, Ben Affleck and Jenny Lopez. We almost got them.
Oh, really? Did they come? They were like
they were gonna get a house down here.
House? Yeah,
they were gonna get a house down here. It's a decent little odd spot. Now I know the Dumb and Dumber script. Did that originally spark from a John Hughes situation?
That was, yeah. And what happened was, so at this point, at a certain point, I'll just explain quickly how Bobby Fairley joined, because Peter and I started writing together.
Yeah, you guys all
And we
three.
were a team. And then Bobby is Pete's brother, and Bobby was not a writer, but he was going to business school, and but he was fantastic. We'd always give him a script of ours when we wrote it to get his notes, because his notes were terrific, really smart. And at a certain point, we were hired by Universal Studios to write a sequel to, they'd done a movie version of Dragnet with Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
We wanted to at least develop a Dragnet 2. So the director of that, Tom Mankiewicz, who wrote a lot of the Bond movies from the 70s, like Diamonds Are Forever, and yeah. Tom Mankiewicz read some writing, or our somehow maybe our agents had submitted material to help us get a meeting, and Tom hired us. Universal and Tom Mankiewicz hired us to write with him the Dragnet 2. And at that point, Pete came to me and said, Bennett, what would you say if Bobby joined us, as a threesome rather than a twosome? And I said, absolutely. He's incredible. All his notes are always great. I welcome him. And that's how Bob joined us, and at the time that he joined us. So that was at Universal, and John Hughes had a deal at Universal at that time.
Yeah.
And I don't know how he read anything of ours, but he must have read something and liked it. It might have even been Dragnet 2, because it was a really funny script when we wrote it. It never got made.
I would love to read it.
It's funny, and we've pulled things from like every script that you write that doesn't get made, you cannibalize it, so much so, by the way, that the very first script that Pete and I wrote, Dust to Dust, there's a joke at the beginning of Green Book that was from Dust to Dust. I remember when he didn't tell me, when I saw the movie, I'm the only one in the theater, I went and that was when he parks the car and he takes a trash can and dumps the trash out and puts it over the fire hydrant. That was from Dust to Dust. But so John Hughes read something of ours, liked us, and called us in and said, guys, I think you guys are really funny. I want you to write something for me, and if I like it, I'll let you direct it. No one had ever said that. I mean, no one was that crazy. So we went away and came back with Dumb and Dumber, and we handed it to him, and he loved. I know we pitched it. We pitched it first, of course. He wouldn't have let us go just unless knowing what we were doing. We pitched him Dumb and Dumber, and he thought it was. He said, "Go." That's when he said, "Go write it, and if I like it, I'll let you direct it." So we went away and we wrote it, and we came back, and the timing of it was just this unfortunate timing, because his deal at Universal was ending, and he was going over to 20th Century Fox, I think. And so what happens typically when a deal ends, especially if it's a writer or a director, is that all the stuff that they develop at that studio basically just falls into a crevasse, it just goes on a shelf, and it isn't developed anymore. I mean, especially if it's the director, they're not around. Their attachment is what gets the movie made. So he went away, and everything kind of just cooled. All the scripts he developed, and this is very typical. And so a few years later, we always loved the script of Dumb and Dumber. We just thought it was hysterical. So we went back to John. We said, John, can we take Dumb and Dumber and try and get it made? And he said, yes, you can, but you can't use me to set it up. Like, I'm not involved as the producer or whatever. And if you use my name, you have to pay me $1 million. So that we said, okay, we won't, and that shaved $1 million off the budget.
Yeah,
I think it was a low budget movie. It was like $17 million for back then, and $7 million of that was Jim Carrey's fee. Well, by the way, when Carrey agreed to do it, we told New Line his price was $700,000, but he'd made Ace Ventura and The Mask. And so we said, well, you should get him at $700,000 because, and The Mask hadn't come out yet. Get him at a discount price. And they're like, no, let's see how The Mask does before we're not gonna, yeah. And then The Mask came out, and it was, in 1 year, in 1994, it was Ace Ventura was first, and then The Mask, and then Dumb and Dumber came in was at the very end of the year. And so it went from 700,000 to 10 times 7 million.
Dang.
Yeah.
I guess they should have roped him in earlier, before
Yeah.
The Mask came out.
And they could have diverted all that money into Dumb and Dumber, but
And you were a little hesitant when you first seen Ace Ventura, I believe, right? Seeing Jim Carrey for that.
yes. I mean, I knew of him from In Living Color and thought he was funny, but always noticed that he was extreme. Like that's his style, is to sort of be faces and everything like that.
Yeah.
And so I went to see Ace Ventura, and I was like, he's making a face. Like, there's not one line in this movie that he doesn't deliver with some strange intonation. I said, like, so I was a little, I mean, like, I was mixed about it because I knew he was talented. But the first thing, the day that I saw Ace Ventura, I was meeting him that evening. And the first thing he said when he opened the door was, first of all, I just want to reassure you, I'm not doing Ace Ventura. I'm doing Lloyd Christmas. I'm doing a character. And he instantly reassured me. And then I was instantly reassured because he was such a nice guy and a great guy. So yes, I was, but he reassured me, and as you can see, it's its own thing. No question about it.
Yeah. And Jeff Daniels was everybody's first pick, I believe.
Jeff Daniels was
Really
nobody's pick, right?
Right, yeah.
No, ours, but
Yeah.
no, we could not
Oh,
convince.
yeah.
We couldn't convince anybody, even his managers,
Yeah.
who did not want him to do it. The studio was like, no, and I loved Jeff Daniels, and Pete. One of Pete's favorite movies is Something Wild, and we would just. The first half of Something Wild is a comedy. It's like a romantic comedy until it gets dark. And Jeff Daniels, there's just he was so good. His comedy was so fantastic in that we loved him. And we also thought that because he's such a good actor, and because I've seen him in so many other things, that he'd sort of bring Jim more to the center and not be so wild. He'd pull him, and they obviously they both they both worked on each other, like their energies pulled both of them into a perfect place where they existed simultaneously at just the right temperature. Jeff was more physical, Jim was more, it was great. They just worked so well together, and they loved each other, and they were such good friends, became good friends.
Is Jim more of an improver on set, or does he like talk about stuff beforehand? Do you know any of that stuff as far as his method goes with like that?
He is very. The thing is, he's very. He's such a professional. He's such a talent that he will give you what's written. He will give you what's on the page, but if he has ideas, he'll say, I've got, what if we did this? And you always want to see what that is. So that's what Pete and Bobby would do, because we'd shoot what was on the page, so we knew we had it, and then if Jim had any idea, or Jeff or said, let me try this, they were always generous to let him try it. Yeah, always. And much of the time they were great ideas. Yeah, you don't want to say no to him,
Right.
But he's not. But he would. Yeah, he was not. He's not. He's very not meticulous, but controlled and very. Yeah, he's not at all wild and uncontrollable.
Yeah.
No.
Do you remember at what time you realized that Dumb and Dumber was a success? I mean, it's godly in the world of comedy films. I mean, you created something
Well,
that it's always going to be top tier stuff. When did you kind of realize that? Do you remember?
well, just I'll answer that question, but you said godly in the world of God. That's
In a world, yeah.
that I'm telling you, Matt, it's you can't first of all, you can't make a hit because if you could make a hit, everyone would make a hit,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So you just try and make the best movie you can, and making movies is so difficult. And the fact that they're made by a team and that everyone has to, and for a movie to end up being good, it first has to start out with a good script. You can't make a good movie out of a bad script. It's impossible. You just can't. So once you have the script, okay, that's a great start. There's your blueprint. But then everything that has to happen for it to emerge at the end of the assembly line and be good requires basically an act of God and the devil. I mean, seriously.
No,
So,
it's true.
so, but if you have a good movie, thank goodness. But what you cannot do, again, you can't make a hit, and you can't make a cult hit. You can't you can't think of how many movies have been made over the years. I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands. And think of the ones that have won awards and the ones that are classics and all that stuff. But now think of the movies that are cult hits that are still in the zeitgeist, that people talk about, that people quote still.
Yeah.
That gets to an even smaller number. You can't. There's no way in hell I would ever have imagined that Dumb and Dumber would have ended up being this cult hit that's in the zeitgeist, that's 25 years later. People, it's quoted all the time in media, in sports shows especially. They love to quote. So you're telling me there's a chance. You can't make that happen. That is something that just happens culturally. That's just bizarre. So I never. This is I never imagined we would have that sort of crazy. How's that happening?
Oh,
Is that
yeah.
sort of crazy? Oh, I know that acid I did in '83. So that's I'm just astonished that it's now it's multi-generational because kids saw it, teens saw it, they got married, they had kids, they're showing it to their kids, and but I will say that because we were the third in the row of three Jim Carrey movies released in 1994, I saw Ace Ventura. I met him at Ace Ventura, and it was a huge hit, and he signed on. But then I watched what happened with The Mask, and I remember we had a trailer for Dumb and Dumber that would play before The Mask, and so I would go to theaters and sit in to watch the trailer, and I would see the reaction of the trailer. And again, you can't predict these things, can't make a hit, but I would see the audience reacting to that trailer and go, I think we're going to be a hit. I think we're going to be a hit. Yes.
It knows.
It was very exciting. And then the timing was just unbelievably right. And when it came out, it was a big hit. I mean,
Yeah.
It came out in December of '94, and then it was a hit into January of '95. And I remember it was like number one for like several weeks, which doesn't happen often today,
Right.
because movies they come in and they're gone. They're gone in 2 weeks, even a hit is gone. But I remembered it was number one the first week of January and probably into the middle of January. And I called up New Line and I said, guys, here's an opportunity for a great ad, because this is back when we had kids. We had these things called newspapers, and they were pieces of paper you could hold in your hand, and there had words on them and news. And so the newspaper ads, I said, you should put in the ad, number one movie in America 2 years in a row. And they did.
Now, I know you say you didn't return for Dumb and Dumberer, like the prequel. What was the story with that?
The story of that was New Line said, guys, we want to do not a sequel, but a prequel. All right, huh? The guy, and it's Harry and Lloyd. They're like in high school or whatever, and we were like, "What? They're adult adolescents. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not adolescents. It's funny when they're adults and they act like kids. It's not so funny when they're younger and they act like it." So we said we weren't interested in doing that, and what happens is contractually you can still like they didn't want their names on it, Pete and Bobby, at that point, because they were moving on and they'd done, you know, Kingpin, and I think they were making something about Mary at the time. But I was like, well, I have no reason not to keep my name on it. So you get like it's a courtesy credit. So I think my name is on it as an executive producer, but I had zero creative. You know, I read the script. I went, "Are you kidding me?" And I was like maybe would they ask me to rewrite it? They didn't ask me to rewrite it, and I didn't ask to rewrite it. And yeah, so we had nothing to do with that one, though, which is, yeah, we didn't like the concept of it. And the only time, and then the reason why we did Dumb and Dumber 2 was that Jim called Peter Farrelly and said he was on vacation in Hawaii, and he said, you know, Dumb and Dumber was on TV last night, and I watched it again, and damn it, that was funny. We should make another one. And that got that rolling. So yeah.
Well, yeah, once you get Jim's okay, I assume
Yeah.
he'd be probably the main ingredient that, you know, might be the toughest part to get involved, and
And
him wanting to do it's huge. Yeah.
also knowing that Jeff would happily sign on, which he did. But there were problems getting Dumb and Dumber 2 made. It was not like we were developing it at Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers wasn't pulling the trigger on it. It was pissing Jim off. He was offended that, and it was coming along. It was a really funny script. I mean, what we were writing, we had so much fun writing it. But so that we ended up getting it from Warner Brothers, and it was independently financed by another company called Red Granite, which no longer exists. That's Google it. It's a whole
Yeah.
there's a whole drama about that. But and then Universal released it. So, but Warner still owns the rights to Dumb and Dumber. Do they hold the rights to Dumb and Dumber 2? I don't think so. But yeah. Yeah, but it was Dumb and Dumber 2 was so much fun making. It was just to be there and be on the set. Be there because I wasn't on this. I was on the set for a few weeks, but not the entire shoot. And to be there, I wanted to make sure I was there for the day when they shot their first scene together again. And it was just, I remember the three of us were watching on the video, and we just looked at each other and went like they instantly fell back into the magic. You know, Jeff would shake his head really hard before every take to empty it, basically, and to get his hair a little wilder.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, it was funny because the first day back for Jeff Daniels, it was his birthday, so we had a big birthday cake surprise on the set, and I remember he plopped into his chair and he said, "I just won an Emmy for the newsroom. Let's make this fucker."
Yeah. Yeah, I remember he was on Newsroom, and when I heard that you guys were making the sequel, I was surprised because I almost thought that he might have reservation because he was doing a more of a dramatic turn, so to speak, at that point in his career.
Yeah, no, the chance to get together with Jim again was
Oh, yeah.
he wasn't going to give that up, and we wouldn't have made it. Absolutely can't make it without both of them. I mean,
Yeah.
they're crucial to it. They had fun.
Yeah.
It was a blast.
I think one of the reasons, I mean, not only is it a great script for Dumb and Dumber and Dumb and Dumber 2, but the fact is those two, I mean, first of all, you can believe that they're friends. Second of all, they're having so much fun that's contagious.
Yes.
And you can't get enough of it. I mean, I think honestly, that's one of the reasons why it's lasted so long is because of the script and the chemistry of those two guys.
I remember when we were talking about coming up with the idea for Dumb and Dumber, and we said we want these guys to have we want them to have a friendship that's the kind of friendship where, you know, because this hadn't been done before in a movie where two guys are like, let's say driving and one of them says something, the other one says, yeah, blow me, you know, and the other one goes, okay. And that, you know, he's not going to blow, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
That's just the way they talk. The way friends, really good friends will talk. They'll say anything and they have a rapport that's personal and special. So we wanted that for them. And also from the very beginning, we wanted, I don't often hear this mentioned, that we wanted to sort of take the format of the Bob Hope, Bing Crosby Road 2 movies and do a modern Road 2 movie. Dumb and Dumber is a modern Road 2 movie.
Yeah.
And not only is it a modern Road 2 movie, but their relationship is totally cribbed from the Bob Hope, Bing Crosby Road 2 movies. Because what would happen to them? They were great friends and they'd constantly be insulting each other. If you watch one of them and you'll go, oh, they just took that. And at the same time, they always fell in love with the same girl and they stabbed each other in the back to get her. And that's direct Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
So we wanted to take that was a big part of our intention, was to do a modern day Road 2 movie. And with that dynamic crucial, that they're smiling at each other and stabbing simultaneously. And there's such adolescence. There's this big stupid kids, you know. Hey, you can't go into Dumb and Dumber and not know what you're gonna get. You can't say you weren't friggin' warned.
Yeah.
By the title.
Well, the original title was Tools Aren't Toys or something like that.
Well, but the original title was Dumb and Dumber, but and we sent it around and it was rejected by everybody and their mothers. So, and we were like, well, we got to keep sending. That didn't stop us. So we thought, well, let's change the title. What happens is you submit something to a studio, and generally someone there, it's their awful job to read every script that comes in and then to write a report about whether they recommend it or not. It's called coverage. And so we knew it had been covered as Dumb and Dumber. So we said, well, let's send him around again and we'll just change the name. So we had two different names for it. One was Go West. And then there was, I wish I could remember, there was a group called either the Young Americans or the something, and they had a song called A Power Tool Is Not a Toy. And we said, well, that's a weird title. Let's just call it that.
Yes.
And I don't remember the name of the group. I wish I could. But you can look up A Power Tool Is Not a Toy. Google it, and there's probably a video for it. But we sent it around 3 times, and 3 times it was rejected by everybody. It was nobody wanted to make it until this small little independent company called the Motion Picture Corporation of America. They read it somehow, and they're the 2 guys who ran it, Brad Cravoy and Steve Stabler. Not only were we sending it around, we were also saying, and Peter is attached to direct it. Like, what? We don't even. Who are you? You haven't made a movie. I mean, so it could not have been less of an attractive package. Who wants to touch a movie that's stupid? And by the way, back then, stupidity was not. It was not a genre. It didn't exist. The idea of like just the way like bad teacher, bad grandpa is a genre now.
Yeah.
So, right. A stupid movie about stupid people was not viable. So, and a stupid movie about stupid people directed by one of the writers who'd never directed a thing, not even a Super 8 movie, less viable.
Yeah.
But the Motion Picture Corporation of America, those guys thought the script was really funny, and they were making movies for very low budget, and to them it didn't matter if Pete directed it; it was fine. So they got the ball rolling on that, and Gravity, and once Jim Carrey read it, and I can't remember, somebody at New Line must have given it to him. I never been able to find the connection of how Jim. I should ask Pete next time. how Jim first read it, but when he read it and then thought it was funny and then was interested in doing it, that's when New Line called up Motion Picture Corporation and said, "We will co-produce this with you." So it was a co-production of both those companies.
Isn't the version, if you go buy like a Blu-ray or a DVD of Dumb and Dumber right now, isn't there like a uncut, like bastardized version of the film floating around or something like that?
Here's the horrible news.
Yeah.
You can't buy a DVD. You can buy a DVD of Dumb and Dumber. You cannot buy a Blu-ray of it. They have never released a Blu-ray, nor have they shown any interest in releasing a Blu-ray, which blows my mind. I'm like,
Yeah.
on the other hand, Blu-ray with streaming, physical media is becoming less and less of an option for studios now. And instead, what they do is they released this terrible version called the unrated or Dumb and Dumber uncut or unrated that you can get on Blu-ray, but you can't get the original theatrical release. And the one that they did release on Blu-ray it has alternate takes. It has additional material, and I think that's how they kind of sold it, was with additional material. We watched it again, not knowing this. We watched it before we started writing Dumb and Dumber 2, and we kept looking at each other like, what's that? Like, it was full of just things, all this excess material that we cut. I mean, guys, I don't, as filmmakers, this. What you release is what you want people to see. And if you cut it, you don't want them to see it. And so when these video or DVDs come out, they're like, "Oh, see the uncut footage that," and people, and you look at it and you go, "Yeah, there's a reason why that was cut. It wasn't good." The movie that we released was the movie we wanted people to see. It's the magic show again. You don't want people seeing you stuffing the dove up your So that we hated that version, the uncut one or whatever that's available on. I remember there's a this is going to sound weird, but there's this big cemetery here in Los Angeles called Hollywood Forever, and they let this company called Cinefamily show movies. They project them along the side of like on the wall, this big wall of and it's really popular. And they did Dumb and Dumber there a few years ago, and it sold out, like 4,000 people. I couldn't believe it. I'm sitting with 4,000 people on people's graves. It was an area of the cemetery that was, I'm not, maybe someone was buried underneath me. It's very possible, but, I didn't feel anything. So, but, but they didn't tell me this, and I don't think they knew or whatever, but the version they showed was the Blu-ray version of the uncut one. And I was cringing seeing these scenes that I didn't want the audience to see, and new scenes too. Like there's extra stuff of Harry and Lloyd in a tub. There was like sexual material that took it away from making them stupid adolescents and made them seem kind of like pervy adults. And I can't stand that version. And in fact, occasionally when they show it and I'm asked to attend, I say, make sure you've got the 114-minute released 1994 and not that one, because I don't want to show up for that.
When you guys sat down to write part 2, first of all, was that something you ever thought you'd be doing? And if so, did you make notes throughout, the in between time of, if we ever do, I'd love to put this in there?
The answer is no and no.
Okay.
Very simple. Not in a million years did I think I'd get a call from Pete saying, Pete calls me Barney, and the reason he calls me Barney is Peter and Bobby love the Andy Griffith Show, and somehow I became Barney because I reminded them of Don Knotts and Barney on the Andy Griffith Show. So that is, I mean, they call me I can't even. They call me Barney, and they rarely call me Bennett. So he called me and said, and we would. By the way, we would watch when we wrote Dumb and Dumber 2. Before we would write, we would watch at least one episode of the Andy Griffith Show. We watched the entire series on DVD over the course of writing it. Just because it's such a beautifully written show. It's so solidly fantastic, just to inspire us.
Yeah.
But Pete called me after Jim had called him and said, Barney, we're gonna do another one. We're gonna do a sequel. And I was just like, I still remember where I was with the phone in my hand, like, holy shit, it's thrilling to do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And no, and here's the thing, Pete is a note taker. Pete has volumes of I can't remember the name of these notebooks. They're popular notebooks that, you know, blank notebooks, volumes and volumes of them, because he'll go to a party and he'll talk to somebody and somebody will say something funny and he writes it right down, and he keeps track of ideas. And so before we would write something, anything, even when we were writing Dumb and Dumber 2, he'd take the books down and look at them and say, oh, that's a good line. There's a good line too. And we actually wanted to use a sequence from Dust to Dust in it, but we ended up ended up cutting it. Which made me sad because I always wanted this sequence to be in a movie. I loved it so much, but so, and then we sit down, we talk, and you know, anything can be put into it in the process of, as you know, you guys, you're writing a movie, you get together that day, and somebody, I wrote this down last night. I thought of this in the shower or whatever. It all gets considered, you know.
Yeah.
The thing about, as you both, because you write as a team, so the thing that you understand is how to pitch an idea, but also how to continue to move forward if it's not, if it's like, nah, I'm not crazy about that, and not be offended, not be hurt, don't take it personally. That's a collaboration. You could tell me anything, and I'll tell you what I think about it. And if it's good, let's use it. The rule was always, if we all like it, let's use it. And we did have a rule where if two people like the majority ruled, you always. So, but yeah, you have to have it. You know what the ego is like. You may think something is fantastic and you really want it. You want it in the script, and your partner says, I'm not crazy about it. How many times have we said, okay, let's go on. So yeah, but anything that's funny is considered, always.
When you guys do group writing, do you guys get together and sit down like in the same room? I know there's probably different occasions for, different things, but like, or is it more of just a email and back and forth the file and building on it and stuff like that?
No. And this was obviously before COVID and everything like that, and before chat, before Zoom and things like that, which facilitated that process, but no, it was always in the room together, always. And always me at the type. They're terrible typists, so it's me at the typewriter on the keyboard, my fingers on the keyboard with them behind me, whatever. But yeah, always that, because that's just the dynamic. I've written with different writing partners throughout my career. I've always written with writing partners. I've never written alone, nor do I want to, nor did I just think that's the loneliest thing in the world. And instead, if you're a collaborator, you're hanging out with your friend all day, you're laughing, you're laughing several hours, maybe you'll get 1 hour productivity. But no, we have to be together because it's all about, it's the rapport and the energy and I love taking an idea, like coming up with an idea and saying, what if we do this? And then Peter would say, oh yeah, and then what if that happens? And then Bobby says, yeah, and then that could happen too. That's the essence to me of collaboration. That's why when someone says, did you write that line? I'm like, well, we kind of all wrote that line, I mean, like you can't, I mean, there are definitely things that were my direct joke that went directly in, but really in a sequence, we all write the sequence. So I don't take any ownership over it. It's just a delight in the collaboration. It's so much fun. I love being part of the process. Again, it's that magician. I'm creating that behind the curtains. This magic show is being put together, and I love being part of that magic show.
Now, when you said you watched the Andy Griffith show, was it rolling in the room or just like when you guys went home, you'd watch it type stuff?
No, we'd watch it at the beginning of the day. We'd watch before we started. They'd come out. There were a lot. Pete, this is the way he likes to write, and he loves to drive across the country, and he likes to write while driving. Now, this is not as easy as it sounds. I'm sitting in the passenger seat. It was nice. They were nice enough to let me sit up front, and I have a pillow on my lap, and I've got the laptop. And you try riding in a moving car
Yeah.
with motion going by your eyes as you're looking at it's like in 5 minutes you're going to throw up. We would have to constantly stop, but I'm writing notes and everything like that. So but Pete loves to go, he likes to drive across the country and write because he thinks that your brain is in this kind of default creative mode when you're not concentrating on something. It's sort of like putting you into this white sound place in your head where you can think more. So we drive all day. We would usually have a goal too. Like Dumb and Dumber, we had he said he had a friend, this very wealthy friend, and the friend had owned all these properties in like Hawaii and Wyoming or in Montana and everything like that. And so I'm like, we're gonna go to Hawaii. We're gonna be on this beachfront. This is my fantasy. And he goes, no, we're going to Wyoming. You know, it was January of 2013 or something. We're going to friggin' Wyoming. Thanks, Pete. So we're going to drive across the country. We're going to stay in this little house. It's freezing cold. Yeah. So, but that's what he likes to do. That it's an interesting technique. It certainly creates a lot of camaraderie.
Yeah.
Oh, we wrote it also on Martha's Vineyard. Where they live, and it's just so much fun. I love. But again, you guys are filmmakers. You know, it's not, as I'm saying this and saying how much fun it is, I'm not telling you about how much not fun it was, you know, because, and I'll give you an example. Pete and Bobby, and it's a sound theory. They like to write themselves into a corner and then take as much time as it takes to get out of that corner. And we did this with Dumb and Dumber 2. Dumb and Dumber was a lot smoother in the writing than Dumb and Dumber 2. There were all sorts of complications including what was going on with Warner Brothers, you know. But their idea is, if I know we're in a corner and we can't figure our way out plot wise, we don't have the answer yet. But if we spend a week, whatever it takes, we're way ahead of the audience because the audience can't possibly figure out what we took a week to figure out. There's no way no one could. And it's worth the time and effort because what we'll come up with is something fresh that no one can figure out. So there was a moment where we got stuck with a plot point, and we were at least 2 weeks of meeting every day, sitting in the living room, literally hours of silence, or silence interrupted by, after 10 minutes of what if blah 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 happened. Nah, okay. That was almost 2 weeks of everyday hours of that. Your head hurts.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking, because writing isn't just writing. Writing is writing and discarding. Writing isn't just writing the solution. Writing is writing all the things and having to say, no, it's not that, you know. So, it's exhausting. And it was, there would be times when it would be so not fun. But once you had it, and once you knew you had it, that was always fun. And you have the next piece. And then, of course, the making of it is fun.
Yeah.
It's always fun. Being on set.
Is that your favorite part of the process, you think? The making or watching it come together? Or?
You know, to me, I would say it's kind of a toss up between. It is a toss up between writing it, because as painful as it can be, it's just it also is thrilling, and it's thrilling to type the end, and to feel like you like cut your path through that forest with a with a butter knife, and you got to the end. But then to see it actually happen was thrilling. And on Dumb and Dumber 2, Pete kept saying, Barney, get in there. Like I have 3 cameos in it. And to the point where like the crew came up and said, Peter, you can't put Bennett in the movie again. People are gonna figure out they keep seeing him. They're gonna be very confused. So but I can't believe I ended up in it 3 times. If you look carefully, you will see me. One of them, I'll just give it away, because I'm peeing on the side of their building that they live in as they go by on their bikes. That's me in the back. But the other ones, so my back is to the camera. But the other 2, it's clearly me. Good luck, Easter egg hunters.
Oh yeah. Me, myself, and Irene, you're in there too.
Me, myself, and Irene. Yes, that was that was ridiculous. That of all, there's a shot of me in an there's a close up of an airplane window, and the camera's moving past it, and there's a shot of me looking out the airplane. And to do something that's as simple, apparently simple and as innocuous as that shot, they set up like outside of Los Angeles, like in the middle of a field, an airplane fuselage. I'm like, all this for that?
Yeah,
You gotta be kidding me. Yeah. It was a lot more fun doing Dumb and Dumber 2.
Yeah. I know you're currently working on a new Police Academy, a reboot, or like an additional sequel.
It's not. It was a sequel. No, I mean,
Okay.
although that has been, as far as I know, it's sort of it's been shelved.
Yeah.
But that was a lot of fun, because the original producer, Paul Maslansky, joined us and was sitting in the room for the entire process of the writing of that. And he said at the end with tears in his eyes, guys, this is the most fun I've ever had on any movie I've ever, and it was, we did that with my friend Brian Levant, who writer director, and Brian came from Happy Days, and he loves a writer's room. He likes a room full of writers, and so in almost all of his movies, if you look at the credits, it's a list of writers. So we put together a writer's room for Police Academy and me and the writing partner I'd written with for years, James Johnston. We were part of it, and our goal was to make the script be a Police Academy movie, make it almost as though you put the script off this, like a VHS of Police Academy, you'd slide it off and put it in, and that's what this movie would be. That was our goal, and I think we achieved it. It was a very fun script, very fun.
Yeah. Like it's, like Dust to Dust, that one, it's like they fall to the wayside. There's so many great scripts out there that I'd love to read. You always hear about these in books and stuff like that, you know what I mean?
So much stuff gets developed that doesn't get made. So much stuff.
Yeah.
I know that oh no, it's a long story. Go ahead.
Well, we're getting down to that hour-long spot. We usually wrap up with one question.
Yes.
Our question is: we get a lot of filmmakers, writers, comedians, of all types of cool folks listen to the show, creatives. So we like to ask people, do you have any like words of advice or words of wisdom when somebody's going through it, if you will? They get caught up, they just kind of get in maybe a bad place with it. You got anything you might want to, some positive words for them?
I would say give up and hit the drugs really hard.
Woo!
All right, no, that is not my
Yeah.
advice. My advice is this. It's not advice. It's like, if you believe in yourself, at some point other people are going to believe in you too. And if you give up, what happens is, because a lot of people do for whatever reasons, and God bless them all, but when if you don't give up and other people give up, you rise. You're rising on that pile, the possibility of it. And so believe in yourself. Do not give up. Don't give up. That's you. If you believe you can do it, do it. You're going to do it, and do it anyway. And do it any way you can. I mean, our phones are movie factories. You have way more than people who made movies in the 30s and the 40s have with a phone. Make your movie. Put it on YouTube. See what happens. You have all sorts of modern ways to express what you want to do. Go out and do it, and do not give up, because somebody you don't. That's Bennett's advice is believe in yourself and don't give up, and don't doubt yourself. You're right. Go with your instinct. You're right. But don't send me your script. Thank you. I can't read it. I'm sorry.
Legal
Oh,
obligation.
damn. I guess I have to pull it out of the mailbox. I just put my script in there for you.
Mailbox, you're old.
I don't even go to my mailbox anymore. I'm so terrified. What will happen?
Scary. Yeah. Well, Bennett, this was fantastic, man. We really appreciate your time. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you both. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Matt. Good luck with everything. Good luck with your future productions.
Thank you, sir.
And yeah. All right. Take care.
All right. Take care. Talk soon.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. And that was a fantastic, sit down with the great Bennett Yellin, man. That was good times. A lot of fun, it's good to get the writers on here too, because they're where it all begins, you know what I mean? And Bennett, great dude. You talk about Dumb and Dumber. When we saying that was one of the biggest movies of all time, we weren't BSing, my friend. We ain't bullshitting. You know what I mean? And it was good to kind of get a chance to meet him and get some great stories from him. And really good dude. I really like him as a person. I think he's a good dude. Very smart dude. Got a good head on his shoulders. I dig him. I think he's A-okay in my book, if you know what I mean. What you thinking, Alex?
Hey, I had a lot of fun. It was great talking to him. Of course, you got Dumb and Dumber. He's done a lot of other stuff, which we didn't touch on, but we're hoping to have him back and we can talk. I mean, he was part of. He came up with the story for Stuck on You, which is Matt Damon,
And Greg Kinnear.
Yeah, and Greg Kinnear. And the thing is, what's great about Dumb and Dumber, as I said before, is and what he brought up is a good point. That what made it work was the fact that you have these two adults that are very childish and act like kids. And like he made a comment about the Blu-ray with the unrated and added things, kind of made them a little bit more like pervy, a little bit more, and that kind of takes the innocence, because one of the things that works is you got these two guys who are actually very innocent guys that they do things and they don't think of
Don't know any better,
they don't know any better, and you can let them slide on that, because that they just don't have the mental facilities to realize what they're doing is dumb, and that's what makes it an enjoyable film. And it was great talking to him, learning about the Farrelly brothers, about the writing process. I mean, both Matt and I write ourselves, and it's always good to get insights on how different people write and how they are able to come up with ideas for their films.
Yeah. Hey, Brad of Style. Bennett was a good dude. I like him. I like how he's came through generations of filmmaking, in the Hollywood land. I'm always interested in how those things go, when you're in the Hollywood world, and it's like you're living in California, and I assume that entering the entertainment business is like it's like right there, you know what I mean? But so a lot of people don't do it, of course, but it's just like jumping in. I wonder if people I wonder if it has the same type of vibe where, like in Massachusetts, if you say, I'm going to be an actor or I'm going to be a filmmaker, you know, people go, okay, sure. You know what I mean? I wonder if there's still kind of that, you know, not sureness of a future from the
Well, I mean,
filmmakers.
I think that's the case no matter where you are, even if
Yeah.
you're standing next door to, Paramount or the WB, Warner Bros.
Paramount.
I mean, I mean,
Paramount.
I mean, when it comes to um, being creatives and wanting to create,
Yeah.
what I always find interesting is you'll always have so many people that will tell you you can't do it, you're not going to make it, and all that. And the fact is, yeah, you are going up against a lot of different people who want to do the same thing, and like Bennett says that I mean there's so many projects that he's written that won't see the light of day. Not because they're not any good,
I'd
just
love
because
to read them. I'd love to
yeah,
read them. I almost
yeah,
asked
same
him if
here.
he
I mean, we'd love to read them and all of that, but
I dropped my fish hook. I dropped my fish hook. You know, we brought
yeah, but the trick is always getting the producers to throw in their fish hook and bring them in and get behind it, because there's a lot of stories, scripts, and ideas that are put out there that never get see the light of day,
yeah,
and
stuff. You
and
know,
like he says, a lot of times writers will take a original script and take their ideas and cannibalize them and use them for another script.
that does
I mean,
happen.
that's just how it is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, glory, glory. We thank Bennett again for being on the show. We'll have you back on. And we hope everybody out there liked this one. You know, Steve Joyner, shout out our boy, mucho gracias. You know, if y'all out there like this episode, go check out more episodes wherever you listen to free podcasts, or you want to see some uncut videos. I know right now you're watching some uncut video on the YouTube for free, but you catch all the BoomBastiCAST episodes on uncut video on the Patreon Boombastic streaming page, Boombastic with two O's. Glory, glory. Hope everybody's cool.
Oh, and by the time this episode comes out, we have been at the Dead of Winter Horror Fest in Worcester, Massachusetts. That was a lot of fun. Let's see, and we showed one of our the films, our short films. Which one was it, Matt?
Special treatment screened. A lot of folks came up, got movies, got posters, got handshakes. We kissed babies. We screened a movie, and talked to folks. And it was glory, glory, hallelujah. If you guys were there and you stopped in and seen us, we thank you very much. Always good seeing you guys. And we got a couple more visits we'll be making on the promotional tour this year. Stay tuned for those things in the future. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And shout out Mikey Bone Road Clothing sponsorship, the great Mikey Bone Road. Alex is wearing his shirt underneath the shirt, so it's all in the hood.
I have him tattooed on my heart.
The great Mikey Bone Road. So with that being said, we hope all is good, all is well. Don't take the route of Norman Fell, but Don Knotts, Barnaby himself. We're gonna start calling Bennett Barney too, doing it big style. We'll catch y'all on the next episode of the Boombastic Cast. Peace.